Hilchos Dei'os Perek Sheni, the laws of character development, chapter 2. Yesterday the Rambam spoke to us about the fact that we have to live baderech habenonit, on the mean, average path. In every spectrum of every emotion, we should try to find the middle ground. Today, the Rambam starts off with an exception to that. Halacha Aleph, Cholei Haguf, people that are sick in body, To'amim hamar matok umatok mar. They taste things that are bitter as sweet, and things that are sweet as bitter. We know this recently in COVID time. We saw many people, right? Things that were sweet tasted bad to them. That's how it is. V'yesh min hacholim, you even have some sick people, misha mitavev v'ta'ev l'ma'achalot she'enan re'uyin la'achila, that they actually desire, they actually want food that's not fit to eat. Kigon ha'afar v'ha'pecham, like dirt, like ash. V'sonea ma'achalot hatovim, and they actually hate good food. Kigon apat v'ha'basar, like bread and meat. See, the Rambam says eating meat is a good thing. It's a good food. Hakol. Back then, even today.
They injected it with
everything according to the majority of the sickness, the size, the quantity of the sickness, they can actually move to want worse and worse things. So the Rambam says that's a phenomenon we know in physical health. Same applies in mental health. Kach b'nei adam, so too there are people shenafshotehem cholot, whose souls are sick, and therefore mitavim v'ohavim hadeot haraot. They love, they want bad character traits, and they hate the good path. The good path is the one that's created from a multitude of middle points. Not only do they hate it, but they actually are lazy to walk in it. It's very difficult for them, again, according to the level of their sickness. We find Yeshayahu, Isaiah, the prophet says about such people, Hoi, oy woe is to those, ha'omrim lara tov v'la tov ra. They say about bad that it's good. They say about good that it's bad. Samim choshech le'or v'or lechoshech. They put darkness as light and light as darkness. Samim mar lematok u'matok lemar. They make sweet bitter and bitter sweet. V'alehem ne'emar, and about these people it also says in Mishlei, ha'ozvim orchot yosher. They leave the paths of righteousness, of straightness, lalechet b'darchei choshech, and they prefer to walk in the ways of darkness. It just means they're sick. It's not a proof that it's anything good. They're cholei nefesh. What do they have to do? Says the Rambam, Umahi takanat cholei nefashot. What's the way to fix those that are sick in their soul, mentally unwell? Yelchu etzel hachachamim shehein rof'ei hanefashot. They should go to the wise men, who are also healers of souls. You can't just be a wise man. You have to also be specifically trained in this area of someone that can heal a soul. V'yirap'u chol yam, and let them heal your sickness b'de'ot shemalamdinotam, through them teaching you new character traits to take upon yourself, new behavior patterns, until they will succeed in returning you to a good way. The Rambam is telling us something very important. You can't heal yourself. As a principle, in chavush matir atzmo. A person who's in prison cannot redeem himself. You have to go to somebody who's outside of your box and submit to them, have them train you to bring you back to the good way. V'hamakirim badeot haraot shalahem. Says the Rambam, if you know, you have enough self-awareness to know that you have bad character traits, but you do not go to the wise man to heal them. You know you're sick, but you don't go to get healthy. Alehem amar Shlomo, about them. Shlomo HaMelech says, also in Mishlei, Chochma umusar evilim bazu. Fools make fun of, they scorn wisdom and rebuke and correction. But let's assume that they're good. Let's assume they know that they're sick, they went to the Chachamim. What's the typical way that a Chacham will advise someone to become healthy? Halacha bet v'ketzad hirefuatam. What is the way of healing them? Mishu bal chema, somebody who has lots of anger. Omrim lo lahanhigatzmo, they tell him to purposely behave himself. She'im hukav v'kulal lo yargish klal, that if he was hit or even cursed, he shouldn't feel anything. Yesterday we learned that the middle path for anger is not to be like a dead person who doesn't feel. That's no good, that's an extreme. But when you're sick, you have to go to the other extreme sometimes. Walk on this path for a long time, until you succeed in uprooting the anger from your heart. Same thing applies for arrogance. If he was a haughty person, an arrogant person, too much on the one extreme, he should behave himself with things that bring him great embarrassment. He should put his seat under everybody, in other words, in a lower place. If it's like an important place for important people to sit, he should sit in the place where the most unimportant people sit. V'yilbash bloyes chavot, and he should wear bloyes, like worn out clothing that drag themselves on the ground. Hamevazot et lov shehem, which embarrass those who wear them. V'chayotze b'dvarim elu, and anything similar, again with the express intent of making himself look bad, embarrassing. Ad sheyakor gova halev mimenu, until he succeeds in uprooting this haughtiness from his heart. And then he returns to the middle path, which is the good path. And when a sick person succeeds in coming back to the middle, that's where you want to stay. You don't want to live on an extreme. Living on an extreme is no good. You want to ultimately come back to the middle. So even when a chacham guides you to go to the extreme, it's only because you have to go there in order to get fully better, then you come back to the middle. Following this line of behavior, a person should do in any other character trait. If he finds himself distant on one extreme, let him distance himself to the other extreme, being hagabos rav, and behave there for a while, until through it he'll return to the good way, which again the Rambam stresses is the middle path, in every single character trait. Halacha Gimel. A very difficult halacha. It's troubled many commentaries over the generations because the Rambam seems to directly contradict what he just said. So let's first see it inside, then we'll talk a little bit about it. V'yesh deot. There are certain traits she'asur lo la'adam linhog bahen babenonit, that it's actually forbidden to behave on the average path with them. Ella, rather, yitrachek min hakatzeh ha'echad ad hakatzeh ha'acher. You should distance yourself from one extreme to the other extreme. Two examples of such traits. Number one, v'hu govalev, haughtiness. She'en derech hatova, she'yiyeh adam anav bilvad. It's not a good way that a person should only be humble, like a middle person. Ela she'yiyeh shval ruach, you must be extremely lowly. V'tiyeh rucho numucha lima'od, and his spirit should be, again, extremely low. You have to go to the other extreme. Ulifichach ne'amar be'Moshe Rabbeinu. That's why it says about Moshe Rabbeinu that the way he's described, anav me'od. Very humble. V'lo ne'amar anav bilvad. Not just regular humble, because you have to go to anav me'od. The commentaries discuss who says that Moshe Rabbeinu was the benchmark for law. Maybe he was anav me'od. But a regular person has to be anav. But either way, the Rambam seems to be learning from Moshe Rabbeinu that it's a chiyuv. It's an obligation to be anav me'od. Ulifichach tzivu chachamim. Therefore, our sages also commanded us in Pirkei Avot, me'od me'od, hevei shval ruach. Be very, very humble. V'od amru, they furthermore said, shakol ha'magbi'a libo. Anybody who is haughty in his heart, kafar ba'ikar, has denied the fundamental of our religion, the belief in Hashem. Shene'emar, as it says, v'ram levavecha, when your heart becomes lifted, v'shachachta Hashem elokecha, you automatically forget Hashem. So one is equivalent to the other. V'od amru, they furthermore said, b'shamta man di'itbe gasut haruach. Let him be ostracized in cherem, he who has haughtiness in his heart, afilu miktzata, even a tiny bit. So nothing is allowed. You must go to the complete opposite extreme. That's one de'ah. A second one, v'chen hakas, midara ahi ad limod. Anger is also a very bad trait. V'ra'ui la'adam she'itrachek mimena ad hakatzeh ha'acher. And it too, a person is befitting that he should distance himself to the other extreme. V'ilamed atzmo, he should teach himself, shelo yichas, not to get angry, va'afilu al davar shera'ui lichos alav, even on something which it's befitting to get angry about. The only exception is, v'im ratzala hatil ema al banavu b'nei beito, if he wanted to get his sons or his household scared, or al hatziburi maya parnas, or the congregation a little bit scared, if he was a leader, v'ratzali chos alehem kadesh yachzru lemutav, and he wanted to specifically get angry at them so that, with a purpose, they return to a good way, then yar'eh atzmo bifnehem shu koes. The only permit is that you can allow yourself to look like you're getting angry, kedei liyasram, just to rebuke them, v'tiyeh da'ato miyushevet, but beno leben atzmo, between yourself, in other words, on your own, you're actually calm. Ka'adam shehu midameh koes bishat kaso, like a person who would look like or would appear to be angry when he's angry, v'hu eino koes, but not actually angry. Amru chachamim arishonim, as our sages said, kol hakoes ki'ilu oved avodat kochavim. Anybody who is angry, it's as though he served idol worship. They also said, Shekol HaKoes, if a person gets angry, Im Chachamhu, if he's a wise man, Chochmato mistaleket mimenu, his wisdom departs from him. Ve'im Navihu, if he's a prophet, Nevuato mistaleket mimenu, his prophecy also leaves him. We saw you have to have simcha, joy, in order to get prophecy. But regardless, what's the Rambam saying? No anger at all. U'ba'alei kas en chayehem chayim. People that are angry, their life is not a life. Huge words here. Therefore, our sages have commanded us to distance ourselves from anger. Again, to the point, you shouldn't even feel things that get him angry. Unlike yesterday where we said that the good way is the middle way. For kas, the good way is the extreme way. Complete elimination of it. But derech hatzadikim, as the sages say, so is the way of the righteous. Hein aluvin ve'enan olvin. They get shamed, but they never shame. Shom'im cherpatam ve'enam mishivim. They hear their own embarrassment. They never answer back. Osin me'ahava. They serve Hashem out of love. Usmeichim b'yisurim. And they are rejoicing in the punishments or the pain, the suffering that they experience. And about them, the verse says, "V'ohavav kitzeit hashemesh b'gvurato." Those who love him are like the sun when it comes out in its strength. And the allegory is when the sun comes out with its strength, it could be hurtful. Yet, those tzaddikim still love Hashem. But what do we do here? Big problem. The Rambam said that the middle path is the best path, and even yesterday he gave the example specifically of humility and anger. He said, use the middle path. Even the last halakha, he said, he was talking about a guy who was a gvalev, who was angry. And he said, go to the extreme for a little bit, then come back. Go there all your ways. What do you do about anger and humility? It's a big contradiction.
Coming back is at the point where you're completely not angry. It's not the middle.
You have to be...
The middle is that side. In other words, you know what I mean?
No, but yesterday the Rambam said clearly what the middle is. The middle is that you get angry about something that's big. No, yesterday he said... Yes, and here he's saying you shouldn't get angry about anything. So, the Lechem Mishnah, who's like one of the primary commentators, he says, I don't have a good answer to this question, but maybe he says that yesterday we're talking about normal people, and today we're talking about sick people. Sick people have to go to the extreme. The problem is that even in sick people, the Rambam says that you follow the middle path in the end. There's a commentary who's called the Avodat HaMelech, and he says that until this halacha, the Rambam is talking about biblical law. The mitzvah min HaTorah is to walk in the way of Hashem, which is the middle path. The middle path automatically reflects Hashem's truest midot. Right. So that would be the middle path. But the Chachamim said, the sages said that these two midot are so bad that a person, in order to be careful that he should never cross the middle to the other extreme, so he should go to the positive extreme. He also admits, not satisfactory. He says it could be, one is min Torah, one is midrabanan. The Rebbe doesn't address this question, but he has a different question that he deals with, why the Rambam says you cannot have any ga'ava at all if the Talmud says that a Talmid Chacham should have shminit shebishminit, a little bit of haughtiness. And the Rebbe says that the Rambam is talking about somebody who is at the beginning of his service of Hashem. At the beginning of his service of Hashem, you have to be completely nullified. Once you're in the middle, you're already on a good path, then you can allow yourself the luxury of a little bit of ga'ava. So maybe, I'm thinking, it could be that even chapter 2 splits at halacha 3. This halacha is not talking about going, somebody who is just starting out. If you're just starting out and you're asking a chacham what to adopt for yourself, this one you should never go to the middle. Always go to the extreme. Yesterday in Perek Aleph, we're talking about a regular guy who's on a good path serving Hashem. You keep going with your emtzayit. And also if you're sick, ultimately you can't stay on extremes. So you have to bounce back to the middle. So if you're sick, you bounce back to the middle. But if you're beginning your avodah on a good path, then start at the extreme. Perhaps. Either way, it remains not fully resolved. The bottom line is definitely as a mode of behavior, you should stay away from kas v'gava in a major way. Now, since the Rambam ended the last halacha on the note of being silent, not taking offense, but not actually taking offense to the point that you answer back, so we move on to the topic of silence. Halacha dalet. Le'olam yarbeh adam bishtika. A person should always increase in silence. It's a very good midah. It's a very good trait to be more quiet than loud. V'lo yedaber. You should never speak. Ella, except o bidvar chokhmah, o bidvarim shetzarich lehem lechayei gufo. Either wisdom you're talking, or things that are needed for the life of your body. Amru al Rav, Talmid Rabbeinu HaKadosh. They said about Rav, considered the first Amorah, the first sage of the Talmud. He was a student of Rabbeinu HaKadosh who wrote the Mishnah. They said about him, Shalosach sicha betela kol yamav, that he never spoke just dvarim betelim, as it's called, idle chatter, all his days. V'zuhi sichat rov kol adam, which, by the way, says the Rambam, is the talk of most people. The conversation of most people is worthless talk. You do your best to stay away from it. V'afilu b'tzorchei haguf. Now, even in the area where it's permitted to speak a lot, which is the needs of your body, you should also train yourself, lo yarbeh adam dvarim. A person should not speak too much. V'alzet sivu chachamim v'amru. About this, the sages have commanded and said, kol amarbeh dvarim mevi chet. You speak too much, you bring to sin. Va'amru, they also said, Lo matzati laguf tov, I didn't find anything better for a body, for a person, ela shtika, only silence. And now the Rambam goes even further. V'chen b'divrei Torah u'b'divrei chokhmah. Even when it comes to Torah and wisdom, where you would think over there that there's nothing wrong with speaking a lot. And there really isn't anything wrong with speaking a lot. A person should be marbeh b'divrei Torah. Still, a person should train himself. Yiyu divrei ha'adam me'atim v'inyanehem merubim. Train yourself to speak less, but say more. Fit a lot of substance into short words. Right? You know, they say a person can give an hour speech and say nothing. Said one point, repeat himself 10 times. Try to train yourself to say, in short, what has a lot of depth. As the sages commanded us and said, a person should always teach his students on the short path. What does it mean? You should come into class and say nothing, say 2 words? No, he should speak everything in short. But if you find yourself talking too much, and the subject is very little, we all know people like that. That's foolishness. As the verse says, Kohelet, ki ba hachalom berov inyan. A dream comes with a lot of topics. The kol ksil berov dvarim. A fool's voice can be heard when there's too many words. When there's too many words and not too much being said, you know you're dealing with a sachal, with somebody that's foolish.
Not enough meat.
Exactly. Says the Rambam even further, halacha hey siyag lachochma shtika. A safeguard, a fence for wisdom is silence. Lefichach, therefore, says the Rambam, when you're in the teacher mode, lo yemaher lahashiv v'lo yarbel ledaber. Don't answer too quickly, and don't speak too much. It allows you to reflect properly, and it also will help you form your words better. V'yilamed latalmidim b'shuva v'nachat. If you're teaching students, teach with calmness, teach with pleasantness, b'lo tza'aka, v'b'lo arichut lashon, without shouting or without wordiness, too many words. Husha amar Shlomo, that's what Shlomo Melech said, divrei chachamim b'nachat nishmaim. The words of the wise are heard with tranquility, with pleasantness. Now, as the commentaries point out, the Rambam says something very interesting. Okay, I'm training myself in my words. I'm being very careful with what I say. Now I can go to the other extreme. I can use my training, I can use my focus to deceive people. Says the Rambam, Asur la'adam, it's forbidden for a person lahanhigatzmo to behave himself b'divrei chalakot upitui, with smooth tongueness and with enticing, with seducing people. V'lo yiyeh echad b'peh ve'echad b'lev. He should not be one in the mouth and one in the heart. Don't say what you mean and mean what you say. Ela tocho kibaro. Rather, his inside should be like his outside. V'ha'inyan shebalev hu hadavar shebapeh. Whatever you're feeling, that's what you say with your mouth. Says the Rambam further, the asur lignov dat habriot. You can't even steal a person's mind, which means not doing anything wrong. It's not actual cheating. What you're doing is you're creating a wrong impression, even though you're doing something that's totally fine. You can't even steal the mind of a goy. What does this mean? And here you're going to see all the things here there's nothing wrong with them, but you create a false impression. Lo yimkor lenochri b'sar nevela b'mikom b'sar shchuta. You can't sell to a goy meat of a dead animal that wasn't slaughtered properly in the place of slaughter. Now, we mean, the value is the same, the deliciousness is the same, it's all the same. You just figure to yourself, why should I sell to a goy kosher meat? I could save it for a Jew and give the goy non-kosher meat. The problem is you create the impression that you wanted to give the goy what you would eat yourself, which is a status. Exactly. That's gnevat dat. So even though in action, I can't hold you in court legally on anything. I paid you for the same amount. The Talmud says even if you charge less, so as money-wise, he's gaining. But you've created a false impression. That's no good.
So you have to make it clear that this is not kosher.
Exactly. I'm selling it on not kosher meat. Don't leave it under the impression that it's kosher. Same thing. V'lo min al shel meta b'mkom min al shel shchuta. People used to sell different leathers. A shoe out of a leather from a dead animal, a killed animal, or a shoe from an animal that was slaughtered. If you create the wrong impression, that's forbidden. Here's also another thing. Don't offer too much to your friend to eat by you, and you know he's not going to accept the invitation, but you come across generous. Look at me, I'm always inviting you. Don't give him too many gifts, when you know that he won't take it. Again, you come across as the good guy, and you create that false impression. If you have barrels of wine that you have to open anyways to sell, but he's in your house, you go, in your honor, I'm going to open this barrel. In order to convince him that you opened it in his honor. That's false. V'chein kol kayotze bazen. The same thing in all things. Even though in action, your action is not legally culpable, but it's gnevat dat. Afilu milah achat, even one word, shel pituy gnevat dat, of seduction or of deception, asur is forbidden. Ella, rather you should behave with sfat emet, words of truth, v'ruach nachon, a proper spirit, v'lev tahara, pure heart, mikol amal v'havot, pure from all trickery and deceit. And the final halacha for today, the Rambam continues to talk about the middle path. Lo yehei adam bal schok u'mahatalot. A person should not be a jokester or a guy who fools around all the time. V'lo atzev. Some text says here atzel. It should be atzev. V'lo atzev ve'onen. Not too depressed or sad. Ela sameach. You should be happy. Kach amru chachamim. As the sages said, schok v'kalut rosh. Lightheadedness and laughter. Margilin et ha'adam le'erva. Get a person used to doing immoral things. B'tzivu. They further commanded, shelo yehei adam parutz b'tzchok. A person should not be overly laughing. When you burst out laughing, don't be way too overreactive. V'lo atzev u'mitabel. Neither should you be sad or mourning. Ela mekabelet kol ha'adam b'sever panim yafot. React or greet every person with a pleasant countenance. I think this line is telling us about reaction. The first line is telling you how you are be'etzem. Bal schok u'ma'atalot. You are a jokester. You are a sad person. Also in reaction to people. Someone tells you a joke, don't overlaugh. Someone tells you bad news, don't overreact either. You have to be measured. You should also not be too greedy. Nivhal lahon, rush to make more money. V'lo atzel, here it should be atzel, not lazy, ubatel mimlacha, and not working. Ella bal ayin tova, you should be a man with a good eye, a pleasant eye. Mema'et be'esek v'osek b'torah, less business, learning Torah. V'otoa ma'achu chalko, and the little bit that you do have, yismach bo, rejoice with it. V'lo yiyeh bal ktata. Same thing with other bad traits. It shouldn't be a man of quarreling, of fighting constantly. V'lo bal kinah, not a man of jealousy. V'lo bal tava, not a man of lust. V'lo rodef achar hakavod, nor chasing after honor. Kach amru chachamim, as our sages said, hakinah, v'hatava, v'hakavod, jealousy, lust, and honor. Motzi'in et ha'adam min ha'olam. Take a person out of this world. They shorten your life, literally. Klalosh al davar, the bottom line, general rule is, yelech b'midah ha'benonit shebechol de'ah v'de'ah. As a Jew, we should seek to go on the middle path of every trait, ad sheyu kol de'otav mechuvanot be'emtza'ut, till all of his traits are aligned on the middle path. Husha Shlomo Amar, as Shlomo HaMelech said, pales ma'agal raglecha, measure out, balance the path of your feet, v'chol derachecha yikonu, and make all your paths firmly based so that you have a secure middle path.